intelligence agent said, and the laptop from hell. It came from Russia, they said. No, it didn't come. A lot of things come from Russia. That didn't come from Russia. And it was all proven out to be a fake job, and that's what they're doing with this. So we just have to look forward, fellas. Look forward and just
Look
say
forward,
what it is, because
fellas.
it's the most popular bill ever signed in the history
The
of our
big
country.
beauty.
Whether you're military or anybody else, this is the
Everybody got
most
something.
popular bill ever signed.
He knocked this one
And it
out of the park.
includes the largest tax cut in American history, the largest spending cut, $1.7 trillion.
You see how he
And yet
reaches
you won't
over and
even
touches
notice it.
his
Just
wife's
waste,
arm?
fraud, and abuse in American
That's so
history.
beautiful.
So you have
I
the
mean,
biggest
it's
tax
just
cut,
that's
the
a
biggest
good
spending
person.
cut, the largest border security investment in American history. We want to have strong borders. And the only thing is, we want to have great elections too. You need strong borders and elections. And my people have promised me that we're going to go into elections, and we're going to make sure they're not rigged, that they're not sullied. We're going to make sure that the elections are going to be fair. You need two things. You need strong borders and you need fair elections. Now, we're going to make sure on the elections also, and our armed forces are one of the most vital military modernizations of
That
all time.
flag-
It will take
That
place.
flag is beautiful.
So we rebuilt our military in our first term,
I'm loving
and now
it.
we're going to modernize and remodernize our military, including building a great golden dome all over our land, so that if they get
Love
nasty
it.
with us, it's going to be
If they
knocked
get
down. It's going
nasty
to make
with
any of
us,
the golden domes.
they're not
they
gonna
call them
like
the
it.
Iron Domes. We're calling ours the Golden Dome, because we did the Iron Domes, and we do sort of everything, if you want to know the truth, but this blows it away. We're going to keep you safe. I want to thank every member of the House and
We're gonna
Senate who
keep
worked
you
to get this
safe.
bill on my
Hell
desk,
yeah.
and many of them are here, and I'm not going to mention all their names because we'll be standing here, but I have to mention a few. And especially I want to thank Vice President J.D. Vance, who's been fantastic. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's been incredible. We have somebody that it was a passion. I think he actually loved it. It wasn't easy, but he loved it. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who's right here. Speaker, thank you very much. What a job, and he worked so
Hell yeah.
closely with the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, who's a fantastic guy. And those two are a team that is not going to be beat. When you look at them and you
Man,
look at their
He's
counterparts on the other side,
Those
it's
two
not
guys,
even close. I want to thank both of
those
you
are
people for
some-
doing an incredible job. Thank you very much,
some
John
real
and Mike. House
smooth
Majority Leader Steve
operators.
Scalise, a brave man. Steve, you know, he suffered a tragedy a number of
Happy,
years ago. I was at
Independence
his
Day, guys.
hospital bedside that night with Melania,
Happy
with our
Independence
First Lady.
Day.
And he had no chance. The doctor said he has very little
I love
chance.
it.
And you look better today than you did then. You didn't look particularly good that night, I will say. But I learned one thing. His beautiful wife loved him. She was a disaster, right? I told him, I said, Steve, I can only tell you one thing. I was with your family and I was with your wife, and your wife was devastated. She loves you. I've seen a lot of wives that, they don't seem to be so
Look how
concerned in those
Melania holds
situations.
herself.
But that's the
So
kind of wife you
elegant,
don't want.
And she
But you have a
smiles with
great,
her
beautiful
whole
wife
face.
who was really there, and you really have done. You're a very brave guy, and
You know, there's
Mike
no
and John and everybody
filler or
that's standing
any
with you knows
stuff
it. Thank you very
pumped
much. I
into
really
her
appreciate
face.
it. House Majority Whip. This is a guy who's great. When I have a problem, I call him up, and he gets it done. He's a tough cookie. I don't know why
Spot
he's not the
cancer.
governor of Minnesota. He comes from Minnesota. He's like, look, he goes, no, I don't want to run for governor. Come to think of it, I think that's a good idea. You would win so easily. The guy is terrible. You would win. You just have to take a look at that handsome face of yours, and you'd win. Tom Emmer, everybody. He did a great job. I think you should consider that, although we don't want to
she
lose
really
it, do we?
is
We don't want to. Let's say we are. I think say we are.
top drawer.
What a
She's-
job you
she's
did. And Senate
class
Majority Whip
incarnate.
John Barrasso, who's incredible. Senate Finance Chairman Mike Crapo. Thank you, Mike. What a job. What a job. He knows that
That's crazy.
stuff.
Trump, he
Him
didn't
and
know
Jason, they really
any
know
of
their
this
stuff.
stuff
Senate Budget Committee
10
Chairman
years ago.
Lindsey
Man,
Graham. What
now
a
he's
good
got
man
this
he is.
this whole
I
that
see a
he's got
poll.
the
He's
whole
running now. I
town
see a poll. He's
clocked.
24 points up. That's
He's
not
got
bad,
it
Lindsey.
clocked, man.
That's not bad. 24 points up. in
He runs that
the
city.
great state of South Carolina. House Ways and Means
He
Chairman
didn't know it.
Jason
He
Smith.
didn't know
What a job. Thank you,
damn thing.
Jason. Thank
when he
you.
came
These
down the
people are
Golden
great.
Nest
These are
yesterday.
great
I
patriots.
remember.
I have to call them
I
out.
was
House
there.
Budget Committee Chairman
to
Jody
rally.
Arrington. Jody, thank you very much. Jody has been good right from the beginning, and so many others, and they're all here, and they fully understand. They'll never speak to me again, but that's okay. It is what it is. But I just want to thank everybody. A lot of senators here, a lot of
He's in good spirits. He's
congressmen
a
and women
happy
here.
warrior.
Lisa, thank you very much, by the way. I have to thank you. Thank you very much. You've been fantastic. So this bill will fuel massive economic growth and lift up the hardworking citizens who make this country run. The factory workers, farmers, mechanics, waiters, waitresses, police officers, firefighters, coal miners. Coal is back. Beautiful. I said you can't use the word coal unless you precede it by saying clean, beautiful coal. China's right now building 68 coal generating plants, and we're putting up wind. It doesn't work, I will tell you. Aside from ruining our fields and our valleys and killing all the birds, and being very weak and very expensive, all made in China. I noticed something, that with all of the windmills that China sends us, where we waste our money because it's the most expensive energy, I see that, they make about 95% of them, the wind turbines. I have never seen a wind farm in China. Why is that? Somebody check that out. Tom Emmer, would you please check that out? But all the coal miners we love and the truck drivers, in this act, we have officially made the Trump tax cuts permanent. That's the largest tax cut in the history of our country, added to substantial other cuts, which is you're going to see like a rocket ship. We're setting all sorts of economic records right now, and that's before this kicks in. After this kicks in,
Guys,
our
let's pray to
country
God
is going to be a
that
rocket
this
ship
economy gets over
economically,
4%
and we've delivered no tax on tips, no tax on
Because if we don't
overtime,
get
and no
4%
tax
growth,
on
we're in trouble.
Social Security for our great seniors. And that's why when you hear
We need
things like that,
4%
this is
to
the
pay
most
for the debt
it's the
borrowing.
biggest bill of its
Because right
kind
now,
ever done by far. But
we
it's,
just
we are going to
borrowed
have a
the most
situation,
money
we are going to have something where people are going to realize the level
history
of
of the nation.
success and popularity of this bill. And sort of to close it out, it makes the child tax credit permanent for 40 million American families. And to increase the car affordability, it makes interest on a new car payment. So this had never happened before. You buy a car, you borrow money, you're allowed to deduct for income tax purposes your payment of interest, you're allowed to deduct it. It's never happened before, so run out and buy a car. But I have to tell you, it's only good, Mike, if it's made in America. If it's made in another country, you don't get it. And to protect 2 million family farms and other small businesses, we're eliminating the estate tax or the death tax. So if you want to leave,
Thank goodness.
if you want to leave your farm or your small business, but the farms are really, they have been devastated, to your children,
goodness,
if
that
you
was-
love your children.
It's
By the way, if you
evil
don't love your
because they
children, don't
tax
even
it
listen to
as
what I'm
income
saying. It
tax,
doesn't
and
matter.
then they want to tax it
But if
again.
you love, would you live? Yes, I think you love your child. This one loves Barron. So,
They just
I don't
tax,
know if we're a
tax,
small business
tax,
or not.
tax,
I'm not
tax.
sure.
That's all they
I'm
know
not
how to
sure that we
frickin' do.
qualify.
They
I'm
tax
sorry,
the same
darling.
dollar
But
10
you know,
ways from Sunday.
it was devastating. Farmers, they had to go out and borrow money. And by the way, is that Pam Bondi? Pam Bondi, raise your hand. Thank you, Pam, for being here. Attorney General, she's done an incredible job. So there won't be any, think of this, there won't be any death tax. You're not going to have to go borrow money. Your parents pass away and the farm goes into the bank's hands and gets foreclosed. That's not going to happen. And with 100% expensing for new investments, we're cutting taxes for every manufacturer who builds, expands, and we have expansion at the highest level that we've ever had it. We have hundreds of factories, including car
usually-
plants and AI. It's coming into our country at levels that we've never seen. And to conclude, not only will we have the strongest economy on earth, we're also going to have the strongest borders on earth. And last month, did you see the number? 0 people crossed our border.
You should be happy.
0 illegal people. And
Usually,
that's after
this
Joe
is like
Biden let
carnival
21
barker
million
garbage.
people, many of them
Bunch of lies.
people from gangs
this
and
time.
prisons and drug lords and
I haven't heard him
people that were
tell
mentally
one
unbalanced. They let
you
them
know,
into our country. We're
there's this
getting them out
typical
at record numbers. And we have an
exaggeration. It's like,
obligation
you know,
to, and
the
we're doing
greatest
it. So as
military
we
strike
approach
of
the
all time.
50th anniversary of America's
But
founding, exactly
for
1
what he's
year from
delivered,
now, we are creating an economy that delivers
he's
wealth
got
for the middle
the
class,
receipts.
a border that is sovereign and secure, and a military
Damn right.
that is unmatched, unequaled
Damn
anywhere in
right.
the world. And you saw that.
Ice.
And what a beautiful sight that was, especially
Ice
after
is
watching what they did
bulked up.
just a short while ago.
We ain't seen
The
nothing yet.
golden age of America is upon us. We are in the golden age. It's going to be a period of time the likes of which I don't think this country has ever experienced before. We're going to make
Not sure
America
if we're
great again, and it's happening very fast. We love you. We thank you for being here. Enjoy the fireworks tonight. And First
The
Lady, I
younger
want to
folks,
thank you. You have been
they don't know it,
It's
Tom.
you think it's easy being First Lady? It's not.
Right, they
Thank
go-
you
they
all
go
very
after us
much.
so hard.
Happy 4th of July. God bless
Very
you all.
elegant
Thank you very much,
outfit she's
everybody.
got on with the little red, white, blue. Oh, and how she, like, you know how she waved? And she sides her man.
We're going to sign the bill now.
Oh, yes. This is so cool. Only Trump makes little processions, little events out of these things. I mean, you know, remember, he leaned on Congress. He said, you guys ain't going home for the vacation or the holidays until that bill is on my desk. Now it makes sense why he was that way. He wanted this. He wanted this moment. He wanted to sign this bill for his 4th of July presentation. And the guy's a marketing genius. You know, like, I mean, anytime something happens or he's doing something, he's automatically thinking, what's the best way to pitch this? What's the best way to market this? How do we call attention to this? Like Alligator Alcatraz? Oh my God, what a stroke of genius. You get the liberals to freak out and scare the rest of the world as a deterrent. Ain't nobody coming to America right now because of the way our news media is behaving about, oh, don't come here, you know, they're disappearing people. It's a bunch of garbage. And there's Scott Bessent there. What's his name? Doug Burgum. Steve Scalise. Mike Johnson. There he is. The man. The myth. Mike Johnson. Lindsey Graham, his old queer ass sitting up there. His old, you know, limp Southern South Carolina breath. Look at him. That was a good one. It's a good day, though. It's a good day. Independence Day. I mean, oh wow. That's so cool. What a neat little, that's neat right there. They gave him the gavel. He's like a regular person. Like, man, I've always wanted to hit one of these. I love it. Mike Johnson, he really, really proved his mettle. You know, because I remember when McCarthy got ousted, they put in Mike Johnson. Everybody thinks this guy, you know, this guy's a stuffed shirt. He doesn't have what it takes. Well, that's not the case. You know, this is a Louisiana guy, born and bred. You know, he's got a pretty slick veneer. He always looks sharp.
Thank you very much.
But
everybody.
obviously he's
And I
quite
wanna
a
thank
smooth
you. People
operator.
out here, they're unbelievable.
Because
People marry
they were
happy
squeaking
families.
by with
How's
one
Scott doing? Good
vote
job?
majority.
Scott, how's the economy? Okay.
So it takes,
It's been bad.
you know,
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a
I
good
remember
time.
when
Happy 4th of July.
Nancy Pelosi was heralded as something special because she could have a razor-thin majority and whip those votes. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's what Mike Johnson's been doing. He's had a razor thin majority, and he's still getting that stuff through. And this big, beautiful bill, you know, there's some pretty astute people. Like I was watching the David Pakman show, and he did a show after it passed, and he's like, look, I never, played this game where I said, there's a chance that, get on the phones, we might be able to change somebody's mind and stop this bill. He was like, this was going down, whether anybody liked it or not. It had Trump behind it. It had the momentum behind it. They didn't have like, a 30-person majority, where strength in numbers kind of thing. You can get a whole group to defect. You got one. If anybody defects, they're on blast. The whole country knows who defects. When it's two guys, they're not in good shape at that point. But there was so much momentum behind this. When it passed the House the first time, I was almost 100% sure. And then when J.D. Vance broke the tie, I said, this is a done deal. Because this is exactly what happened with that stupid Build Back Better bullshit. Or what was it? The Inflation Reduction Act. Oh my God! And every president gets one of those. And this better work out. That's all that can be said. Trump. I mean, we're putting faith in Trump here. But if we don't make 4% growth, we just borrowed the most money that America has ever borrowed, ever. Like kind of by far. I think it's like $4 trillion borrowed a lot of money. So Republicans hold that now. They have actually borrowed the most debt. They can't hold that over the Democrats anymore. They can't behave as fiscal hawks anymore. Unless the plan works, unless they're able to get 4% out of the economy, and I think that's actually pretty reasonable. Because it seems like our economy has been dragging around anchors, a bunch of little anchors, with all these regulations. And you just need to take take the weight off of it, and it would take off. It would take off, and luckily there was enough stuff hung on it, since 2001, since they started bombing Baghdad. Enough of the bureaucracy had built up enough weight on our economy. Trump had something to work with, and he's able to strip some stuff loose. And, I honestly think that we will get 4%. I think, barring something catastrophic, we should get 4%. I don't see why not. We got the AI thing going on. These factories, these people, they know that they're not going to have to hire a lot of people to run these factories. Here shortly, they're going to be like car factories where the damned robotics run the whole thing, and you got like 5 people watching the robots. So they're going to start reshoring. Just because. Why would you pay a tariff and pay slaves over in China when you could just come here and pay 5 people to run a factory floor? I think that's the future. And I think that's why Trump had all the little meetings with all the businessmen and stuff. That were like Steve Jobs. It was like, look, this is the future. And we're fixing to put tariffs on. So you're going to have to bring that stuff back here, or you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit. And it's smart politics, man. This is smart politics. He's taking the obvious choice of everything. Democrats are just so stupid. They don't take a position, and they allow him to take a position. Then they take up the opposite. How stupid? How stupid could you be? It's like, no. You get your dibs on the policies from the jump, and you guard those like your life. That's your That's your bread and butter right there. I would think that you would be, I would be guarding the working class, with my freaking reputation, my life, I mean, and they just kind of let it all go. For some reason, they just kind of, like a deer in headlights, They just froze up when Trump won, and then he just starts staking out all the good positions, and they're left flat-footed, and now they just look like they're, uh, 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 what do they call it? Something opposition. They just look like they're, the state opposition or whatever it is. They don't actually have any policies. They're just like this little voice in the background because they're not even a majority anymore. He won the popular vote. So they're this little bitch ass voice in the background with no power, mind you, that's running its mouth. So they're just opposition, and that's how people see them. And the Republicans, they were the loyal opposition for what, 50 years, since the 60s, until like pretty much just now, or at least till Newt Gingrich's Congress. That was like the first Republican majority for what, half a century. So it's like they were literally the party of opposition. They were fighting change in those periods, the Republicans. Now it's the Democrats fighting the change. Because, see, Obama done messed everything up, done transformed the nation with his stupid phone and his stupid pen. Okay, well, now it's time for progress. Things need to change. You've messed some things up. We're not trying to conserve anymore. We're not trying to conserve your bullshit that you created, Mr. Obama. These progressives can become the conservatives, the ones that are stuck in the past fighting progress. Let them be the regressionists, because that's how they're seen. You can bet your boots on that. That's how they're seen. They don't ever have any. I mean, they don't even like come up and say, something, we see you're doing this. Well, we'll sign on to it if you tweak it such and such. They don't even show up with deals. Those dreamers they always crowing about. They could cut a deal with Trump in a heartbeat. He would be tickled pink to do a bipartisan bill with the Democrats about the dreamers. I mean, honestly, like, let's call a spade here. He tried to do that in the first term. They just refused to work with the guy. They could extract so many wins out of Donald Trump if they so chose. If they came to him genuinely, trying to do something good, he would be tickled pink to work with the Democrats. Trump, he's like a dog. You rub his belly, he's in there like swimwear. I mean, he seems pretty. He's wily, crazy like a fox, but he's pretty disarming. He's not hard to get along with. I don't think he doesn't present that way. Not to me, anyhow. It seems to me like he gives a lot of chances, to be honest. Like, he'll let people come and apologize and ask for forgiveness, and he'll give the forgiveness. And I just think, that takes a pretty magnanimous person. Obviously, he's dealt with a lot of people over the years, and he knows how to treat people. I was watching that movie Hoffa with Jack Nicholson the other day. And there was a point where he was talking about when he took over the Teamsters Union, where he said, when you take over, you make your list of the people you want out, like Trump probably. You get your list together, you fire them on the first day. You don't piecemeal it out, because then people are worried, who's next? You get rid of everybody on the first day, then the second day, everybody that's still left, they trust you. They know they have a job, they're ready to work, they're ready to contribute, they're glad to be there, they're not worried, they're ready to fight for the team or to work for the team. And he's like, I mean, and that's smart business. And Trump kind of reminds me of that kind of, that whole, because Jimmy Hoffa was very much so a blue-collar man of people, and I think he knew the dynamics at play, especially between men, and there was one thing he was talking about, you know, most grievances can be resolved, but a perceived slight, that he said that mother effer is gonna hate you till the day he dies. So, and I just thought, those are kind of profound. Like a perceived slight. May not even really be a slight, just a perceived slight, because we've all had that happen. We've all perceived slights that weren't real. We've all slighted people without realizing it. Everybody's done that. Everybody's experienced both of those. And he's right. When you feel slighted, that's you hold that against somebody. That's not a typical grievance. And because grievances typically can be resolved. And Trump's kind of proved that. If you come to the table, there's some there's some position that nobody's happy with, but everybody's okay with. You know what I'm saying? Like my name. Perfect example. Neither of my parents could agree on what to name me. And so neither of them got what they wanted. So they ended up with this middle ground name that's just garbage. And I'm like, so I got a name that neither of you even really liked? What the hell is wrong with you? I couldn't believe that. I'm like, why would you do that to me? But I could have been Ryan. That would have sucked. That would have sucked. I forget what my dad wanted, but anyway, I was watching this earlier, and I just thought it was
Trump's
a really neat
deportation bill, or sorry, no, Trump's big beautiful bill had a large amount of money sectioned out in it for border security and ICE. And this was taken very poorly by the Democrats. In fact, let's watch the Democrat Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries explain to us exactly how great this bill is going to be.
By the deportation machine, a deportation machine.
That's exactly what I voted
unleashed
for.
On steroids by this one big ugly bill.
Hell yeah.
Please.
We know that.
Yo, okay, I'm gonna let him keep saying because I just realized
that's
the
not
fact I was gonna
hyperbole.
say was in this video. I'll let them.
It's not a hypothetical. It's not hype. J.D. Vance told us
We ain't seen nothing
the other day.
yet.
Don't worry about the cuts to Medicaid.
AOC's right.
Don't worry about the fact that
She's right.
this is the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Don't worry about the fact that
My brother had an autoimmune issue where he had it was almost like he had like a bug eating eating away a little tunnel through his skin, like in his taint, and it ate away all the skin all around his rectum and everything, like seriously, and it took like a year of skin grafting, and he learned what anxiety was. He actually didn't know what anxiety was until they did the dressing changes every day at the same time. And he said all of a sudden, he was like, is this what people are talking about when they bring up, he's quite a, he's a unique chap, put it that way. But, he had all the skin, he got disability, and he could have had disability for life, like over $2,000 a month, disability for life, Medicaid for life. Dude's like 39 years old, okay? The skin grafts take. They do everything right. My dad takes him to the damned hospital every single morning to get dressing changes. I mean, to the point where he had like a bag of medical stuff on the door of his room. I never seen nothing like that. It was like an emergency thing or something. But anyway, he heals up and meets a girl. And but right before he met the girl, he's like, I'm not taking he did take the disability because he was literally in the hospital having dressing changes half the day. He almost, they gave him like a 5% chance of like getting out of that somewhat normal, not having a colostomy bag type deal, like no joke. And anyway, So, you know, he gets better and he says, you know, to hell with this. I'm not sitting around all day. And he was living good too. He was going on vacations, you know, once after, like once he got well, and there was like a month or two period between that when he went back to work, you know, he took a couple vacations. So he was flush with cash, nice TV, you know, flush with cash. He said, to hell with this, you know, to hell with this. He started doing electrical, started going to school for electrical, met a girl. Now they're getting married, I think in the next month or two. Just got back from like a month-long tour with a camper and a brand new truck of like Niagara Falls. They have a newborn. They have a house. My brother makes great money now. He's almost finished, almost got his journeyman's in electrical. And that's because he didn't, like my grandfather always used to say, if you take that money, you're under the thumb. You can't make $1 more. You are stuck there. You're stuck in that socioeconomic position. That's you. That's you. You're wearing that the rest of your freaking life. My brother was only 39. Now he's like upper middle class, big time. His wife makes very good money, and he's about to be a journeyman electrician. You know, he's upper middle class now. All of a sudden, he went from getting disability and Medicaid and living, you know, with his dad to and sick, genuinely sick, to well and prosperous and happy and contributing and raising children. You know, I mean, it's just like these people. They talk about I've already seen videos. They talk about the people that are going to be thrown off as if they're not able-bodied. And I use my brother as an example because they say nobody's able-bodied. Well, bullshit. My brother was able-bodied. He's proof. And they gave him lifetime disability and lifetime Medicaid. He turned the shit down and went to work because that was the better thing to do for himself, for society, for his, you know, I mean, for his bloodline. You know, I mean, these government programs hold people down, and if the Democrats have their way, they'll just keep holding these people down. All these obese people on food.
Millions of Americans, more than 17 million Americans, will lose their health care, and many more will experience higher premiums, copays, and deductibles, whose life will measurably get worse as a result of this one big ugly bill. Vice President J.D. Vance said, don't worry about that because it's all about the deportation machine.
He's the worst order I've ever seen.
I'm sold. Gonna cut Obamacare, build a big deportation machine.
Also, note the scaremongering around the ramifications
Demagogue.
of this, right? The premiums are going to go up and all this, as if the things which feed into one another,
Trying to
as
scare
if
old
removing
ladies.
a whole bunch of illegals, therefore improving pay per capita, will not make you richer and more
Right.
able to afford
Excellent
any
point.
bill increase if it even comes about.
Also, wasn't a big part of this preventing illegals from getting access to Medicaid and Obamacare in the first place?
Medical tourism, I've never heard of that anywhere.
They can't claim state-sponsored medical aid if they're not in the country. So bye. But anyway, yeah. So you can. I mean, look at the
Base.
faces on the back benches there. They don't
I love
look
how they
very
call them
happy,
back
and
benches.
I'm glad to see it because I don't want them to be happy because these people are terrible.
They also look tired. This
They
is the
do.
thing. They're
They
beaten
do.
down.
But as you
Man,
can
what a
see,
victory, though.
the bill ended up tying
Oh,
in the Senate two
I love
probably
that.
libertarian Republicans.
Nail biter.
I think one of them was Rand Paul.
I don't doubt one of them was Rand Paul.
Yeah,
And then, of course, all of the Democrats to put it as basically a tie. In the end, I don't think it's quite finished yet. But basically,
Well, I think the Senate got through.
Oh,
and
it
it
got-
was it was J.D. Vance
Yeah.
was the tiebreaker, as we can see in this headline here,
Love
and
it.
it was Congress who I
Love
believe
it.
should be voting on it
Beautiful.
today if they've not already jumped
Doesn't
straight
matter
into
how
the
big the
voting.
majority
And it
is,
was after
guys.
there's Congress vote, and if it passes
What
through
matters
Congress,
is the
that
majority.
Elon Musk was saying that if
Obviously.
it passes, he'll start his own new party to counter it.
yeah. And one of the things, it was J.D. Vance that got it through the Senate because it was tied. So it was pretty damn close. But this is going to do some fun things, and I mean it's a huge amount of money, but at least a huge amount of money being put to the right ends.
Exactly.
So NPR
not
here
going
warned
to
us this is going
entitle
to
this.
supercharge.
It's going to something
Immigration
that's going to make
enforcement.
us safer, and it's
And I
cutting
can't help
that
but read
bullshit.
everything the left says, just with the sort of Giga Chad image in mind. It's like, oh, good, this is going to supercharge immigration
If you read
enforcement.
it all in the voice of Duke Nukem,
Yeah, that's exactly
it's
the
way better.
I wish I could do the voice of Duke Nukem.
There's been a small story on the side of this, which is that a man refused to call the police after his wife was deported by ICE, and the comments on that were like, "You're assuming he didn't call it in himself."
Yeah.
It's very-
Apparently, he didn't take his Trump posters down and his flags.
Have you seen the meme of, oh no, I'm really worried about ICE deporting my mother-in-law who lives at, this address, gets off work at 6 p.m. Like, it sounds very much like that, doesn't it? But anyway, let's go through some details here. So this sets aside about $170 billion to support the Trump administration's border and immigration goals, which includes detaining and deporting a record number of people from the US. So Stephen Miller's having a great day today. The final bill allocates $45 billion for immigration detention centers, as well as $30 billion to hire more ICE personnel. $30 billion? That's
30 billion.
ironically going to be an army of ICE
An
personnel for the transport costs and to maintain.
That's
So,
more
how's that
than
breaking
Canada
down in terms of
pays
individual
for their defense.
compensation? Because I'm thinking of a very quick and speedy career change.
I will get to that in a minute, right? So it also provides $46.5 billion to complete Trump's border wall. It also sets
Hell
$5 billion
yes.
for customs and border protection facilities and $10 billion for border security initiatives more broadly. So you've got to have a little bit of money left over in a pot just in case there's a good idea comes up while you're in the middle of deporting millions of Mexicans. $13.5 billion is put towards reimbursing states and local governments engaging in immigration and border-related enforcement. So the good boys down in Texas. So you spend all your own money in actually maintaining the border of the United States. You should
Good
be
boy, pat
compensated.
on the head.
I wouldn't do that. And $3 billion is allocated to the Justice Department for immigration-related activities. Now, if you take all of this in one, this makes the ICE the third largest military power in the world by spending.
That's
The United States spends nearly $1 trillion a year. China spends $314 billion a year, and the next largest competitor to that is Russia at $149 billion per year. Britain is $81 billion a year, and so if we just say
That's
it's
what it costs
the
to support
$30
the
billion,
world.
then they've still got a more well-funded military than Canada. So it is pretty impressive how much money Donald Trump is committing to border security and
Seriously.
deportations. So I think the left is actually correct to be worried about this
Yeah,
from their
They're
perspective,
fixing to lose
obviously,
their
and the right is actually correct to be cheering this on. This is what you voted for, and it looks like you're about to get it. I mean, I think ICE at the moment gets something like $2 billion a year, so upping it to $30 billion a year, that's going to be very impressive, and it's going to do a lot of things. So they are indeed hiring people, obviously Harry, up to $90,000 a year. 49,000.
Match that, Carl.
Yeah, 49,000 to 89,000 a year. Just saying, lads, it'd be if you're looking for a job, they're looking for people to employ. The market is suddenly booming, as it were. So just saying, this is
do that.
this
I
is an
might
option
look
for
into
you.
that.
Anyway,
I love, in Britain we have the this candidate must be from a minority ethnic background stuff on our stuff. I can't wait for when we have deportation officer ads here and it says must be native white British.
I just like in America, it's like the candidate may not be a foreigner because you'd be deporting yourself. Anyway, so how is the left taking this? Well, not brilliantly, right? The thing is, a lot of them are actually quite annoyed that actually, in a way, democracy has kind of worked here, right? So you've got AOC, who goes out and she's on the verge of tears. I don't know whether this is actually going to play. For some reason, it looks like it's not going to play. Let me see if I can refresh it quickly.
Well, presumably her abuelita's going.
Abuela, I think it is.
Oh, whatever.
The thing, right, just as a quick thing here, right? That it strikes me as a perpetual indignity that Americans are forced to learn Spanish, right? In Britain, we don't know any Spanish. We don't know any
Rightfully
Spanish
so.
words.
And this is people who regularly go on holiday to Spain.
Yeah, exactly. A large percentage of our population lives in Spain.
We don't do Spanish, we don't do Portuguese, and we don't do French, but
Yeah.
we have some cultural crossover.
Yeah, and don't worry about that, Sam Salsman. So it just strikes me as a kind of daily indignity on the Americans that you have to have any engagement with the Spaniards, because the Anglosphere's entire engagement with the Spanish world has been to crush it repeatedly in war. Right, and I had to look this up the other day because I wasn't even sure if Britain or England had ever actually lost a battle against the Spanish. Right, there was one island fortress that they had that we tried assaulting and we failed it. We later went on to win the war, but like,
To be fair, though, we do have a historically great military relationship with the Portuguese,
yes, we do.
who screw over the Spanish.
Yeah, exactly. Oldest alliance in the world because the positions of Spain and Portugal just haven't changed on the map. But the point is, no one who speaks English as their first language should ever have to learn a word of Spanish, just as an FYI. And the fact that you do justifies this mass deportation program. But anyway, as you can see from Eric here, AOC, for some reason the video isn't playing, came out onto the steps and was just like, "Oh, I think this is one of the saddest days in modern American history." Oh dear. Obviously, she could only really talk about the welfare spending.
Poor baby.
But then
Try harder.
she took to Blue Sky, and she was like, "I don't think anyone is prepared for what they did with ICE. This is not a simple budget increase; it's an explosion."
It is.
You don't Duke Nukem voice.
I'm not going to try a Duke Nukem voice.
She
Do it,
knows
Harry.
what things
I
to go
can
down
play
to.
the Megadeth riff. And,
She knows that ice.
I can't do the voice though.
Is an explosion, making ICE bigger than the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, DA, and others combined. It is setting up to make what's happening now look like child's play. Listen, chat, right? Just tell me if you voted for this, okay? Because this is, if I were you, I would be voting for this.
Damn
This is
right,
this
I
would be
voted for
exactly what
this.
I'd be voting
That's
for. Any
exactly
thoughts
what
on
I
this so
voted
far?
for. You're goddamn right.
If this isn't all just another case of the Democrats bigging something up and selling it, and then it ends up being a big disappointment, if this is actually as bad as the Democrats think it will be for them, then that's a good thing.
I mean,
I just don't see how
I
it
have
could be a bad
faith
thing,
that-
right?
I'm a human
works out.
tripod, and I only wish for it to be over here soon as well.
Yeah, I know. It really is a case of, oh God.
Just look on with jealousy.
I am. I'm living vicariously through the Americans because this is such a
English,
huge amount of
they're
money.
very driving.
And so AOC is just like, yeah, look, what's happened up until this point is going to be, it's
Child's
going to
play.
be a child's play. She's absolutely right. And then you've got
$30 billion.
Right? Then you've
That's
got
like
the
triple their
general
budget.
faces of left-wing media.
I mean, they're fixing to go ham.
It
on
writes
these
itself.
liberals.
It really
I cannot
does.
Wait.
I know they're not happy.
Built-
And
finishing
if they're
the
not
wall?
happy, then you should be happy.
Yes.
Because that means we're getting what we wanted, and they didn't get what they wanted, and that's how things should be.
Yes.
That's generally how all
Explanations
things
of
should be. Because what they want is a palpable evil, just to flood your country with foreigners and to make sure that you have no future.
And
So screw them.
They want to make us
high
an
officers in the
underclass.
Mexican government literally want
They wanna make
reconquista
men-
of the western seaboard of the
Specifically
United
white
States.
men,
So
the
and that's
untouchables of
basically a
America.
declaration
That's their
of war.
goal.
So it's a good thing that America is going to be kicking all of these people out who are agents for a foreign country.
What was the exact terminology she used as
Yeah,
well?
these
'Cause
people
it
are
was
citizens
genuinely
of other
shocking. It's like
countries.
Mexicans here and in
the
America.
hell do
or
they
something
think
like
they
that.
have
So,
a
right,
right
so
to
integration's off the table. They're going to support
It's
them.
never been on the table. That's
Yeah,
why.
well,
That's why so much of California has to speak Spanish.
It's
Exactly.
conquered land.
Yes.
That's how it's treated, and that's how they believe it to be. In the same way as we have our enclaves over here, where they spray paint no whites on the walls.
And they're going hard on California too. They're really making sure that they bust this up as best they can. And good on them, because it's a lot of criminal activity going on. It's a lot of really shady goings on that you don't quite know what the hell, like all these car washes that are run by people that don't want to show their face on the news, and none of their people are showing up. They show video, all their employees bolting out of the freaking car wash, or trying to act inconspicuous and walk away when they notice the ICE agents. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.